Whenever someone mentions the name Rayman, you know what doesn't immediately come to mind? Racing and arena battles, yet here we are! Like I said in the previous video, Rayman Revolution was a port for the PlayStation 2 launch window, but Ubisoft didn't stop there. I mean, surely they wasn't just about to waste a perfectly good game engine on just one game, were they? The answer to that question was a resounding no, and thus we got Rayman M. What's the M stand for? Well, multiplayer, of course, because nothing screams Rayman quite like beating the shit out of your friends.
Oh fuck, I can't believe you've done this.
I really like the intro to the game. While the spinning logo between each short is giving me severe, oh god, why did I want to play this game anxiety, there's something about them that's just, oh, so good. I think it's partly because it reminds me of that old Smash Bros commercial. You know, the one where Mario and the gang beat the ever-living crap out of each other? I still refuse to believe anyone at Nintendo gave the marketing department their seal of approval for producing, let alone airing, this masterpiece. The intro here doesn't quite carry the same weight though. I mean, Rayman abandoning roadblocks to an untimely death by falling isn't something I'd expect to see for sure, but hostility against Razorbeard and one of the pirate grunts? Yeah, I could totally believe that. I just spent 16 hours fighting them in the last game, what did you expect? The part at the end where they're peacefully walking towards the sunset while their shadows quarrel is a nice little touch though, I must admit. The backstory here is that they're all in a sporting competition. Look, I get the need to have an explanation as to why the characters are acting the way they are, but when it's literally one sentence in the manual, why did you even bother? But I guess this is just a spin-off, so instead of scrutinizing every single detail, I think just going along for the ride is the better option, and what a ride it is. Judging from the subtitle, you'd think this is purely a co-op game, right? Well, wrong. The real meat of the pie is still in the single-player mode. Actually, contrary to what the title might suggest, you can only really progress in the game by playing through it alone via the single-player option. You actually have a wealth of options to choose between here, but most of them are locked until you meet certain prerequisites. More often than not, that's simply completing the modes you have available to you. There are 2 core types of gameplay to choose between, races and arena matches, and 5 different leagues to compete in. These are the beginner, advanced, expert, extreme, and bonus leagues. Each of the leagues have their own exclusive set of stages, so it's not like in, say, Mario Kart where you race through the same stages but on higher difficulties. You'll find the races in the left part of the menus. The race stages each have 3 different modes. Race will pit you against 3 opponents in a race for first place. Popolapoi is a time attack mode where you extend your timer by shooting these butterflies, and then there's Lumps, where you race against 1 opponent for first place, and you have to collect a certain amount of lumps that are scattered throughout the stage to win. Honestly, you've got to appreciate how they took the time to create this many unique stages for the game. At first glance, they might not seem like much, especially if you just look at the maps for each of them. Almost every map is like just a square, except for 2 of them. One is the ghost ship, which has this confusing mess, and then there's... oh no. Well, I'm glad at least some of the budget went into making a dick joke, if nothing else. Look beyond the maps, however, and you'll start to notice just how many moving parts there are in each of the stages. The part Rayman M does so well is how the tracks are set up. Throughout them, you'll find these buttons, which when shot will change a part of the stage, whether that be switching the location of obstacles or activating or deactivating traps and boosters. I didn't use these for the most part, that is, I didn't really have to. Sure, I hit some to open up new pathways and such, but most of them change around hazards and if used correctly can slow down those ahead of you considerably, but I didn't really have anyone ahead of me for the most time. The tracks are set up so that there's one definitive road to follow to get you through the fastest, and they're not necessarily the hardest places to get to. Actually, most of the time, the more difficult paths to reach aren't the ones that get you through the level fastest, but will rather slow you down. It's not like in Sonic, where the highest road is usually the fastest, but it requires you to think strategically and optimize your laps by continually switching between the different paths, and in Popolapoi and Lumps mode, you're literally required to go through them all to win. There are a lot of stages in this game, but you'd be surprised of how little music there are. Basically, what the developers did here was slightly tweak each character's themes for each stage. You might not even hear the difference at first, it's that alike. Well, except for the popular Poi mode that has its own track for every stage independently of which character is chosen for some reason. While we're on the subject, I really do not like the roster here. I mean, sure, playing as Razorbeard is pretty neat, but two nearly identical robots? Razorbeard's wife? What the fuck even is this thing? It's said that Tilly was actually supposed to be Lee, but was dropped at some point, and it must have been pretty late in development too, because she's right here on the back of the cover. Personally, I really like playing as the teensies because they're flat out awesome and hilarious, but I soon switched to someone else because of the god-awful theme song of theirs. The different characters do add some needed variety to the races and arena battles though. It's just a shame then that the AI is literally the worst. Sometimes they'll just stop for no reason whatsoever. Most of the time, they'll run headfirst into obstacles and get stunned, and they'll rarely use the optimize function, and this all happens even in the Extreme League. However, the worst example by far is in the arena modes. There are just about as many arena stages as there are race stages, and they consist of 3 modes each. Lump Spring, where you compete to be the first to collect 5 randomly spawned lumps. Lump Fight, where you pit against 1 or more opponents and need to use items to be the first to 5 kills. And Capture the Fly, where you need to hold on to a fly for a set amount of time to gain 1 point. First to 10 wins. For the most part, all you need to do to avoid getting hit is just to jump around like a maniac. Like, they just won't hit you unless they're lucky, and Capture the Fly is... well. And that's how I won them all. See what I mean? You know, this game is actually a big part of why I decided to start playing through the Rayman series to begin with. At first I thought about replaying Rayman 3 because I have really fond memories of that one. But as I started looking through the series, I remembered something I had long forgotten. Yeah, that one Rayman racing game. I remember playing something like this at a friend's house when I was younger, and I always thought it looked so fun and felt really good to control. But I can't seem to remember the arena part of the game. That's why it clicked when I read during my research that there's a PlayStation 1 version of the game with just the racing segments. Of course! What's weird about Rayman Rush is that the game came out not before, but after Rayman M. It's not often you hear games get remakes which get released on a previous generation of hardware, but this is one of them, I guess. Previous hardware wasn't the only thing Rayman M got released on though. It also saw releases on the Nintendo GameCube and the Xbox as Rayman Arena, exclusively in North America. The reason it got changed from M to Arena, I guess, was to avoid confusion with the ESRB, who are the ones rating games in North America, where an M rating means the game is only intended for mature audiences of 17 years of age and up. The game has some remixed content, but the biggest addition are maybe these odd cutscenes where Murphy is explaining the game to you. If you're a Rayman fan, I highly suggest you take a look at them, if only to watch Murphy get his ass kicked. While the cutscenes only exist in Arena, the overall tone of the game is pretty well portrayed here. Actually, Rayman M seems like a turning point in the franchise in both a stylistic and an atmospheric way. The visuals are much more gritty and rough, and the series as a whole begin to focus more on absurd humor going forward. And it seems like it all started here. It's pretty clear when you look at the two that Rayman 3 was visually inspired by Rayman M, or maybe it was the other way around, who knows. The racing part 2 makes me wonder if it in some way inspired Origins and Legends. But enough about the looks of the game, how does it play? Pretty meh, to be honest. I mean, it's fine, really, but there's just something that feels a little off. Take the jumping, for example. In a normal platformer like Rayman 2, you descend upwards relative to the time you hold the jump button. But here you either make a full jump or a short hop, but to execute the short hop, you need to barely touch the X button. Also, the gliding seems different too. They probably sped up the descent to accommodate to the faster pace of a racing game, but it still feels a little weird when you're coming straight off of Revolution. The controls are pretty simple, all things considered. You jump with X, shoot with square, yada yada yada. What's interesting is the optimization button, or the triangle as I like to call it. Whenever you're in the middle of a boost or about to hit the ground after a jump, you can press it to get a speed boost. This is probably how you're gonna beat the NPCs, since they rarely use it. Oh, and also you can spam it to recover faster when stunned. Neato! By the way, even though the AI is laughable most of the time, the NPCs kinda cheat. Sometimes they'll grab onto a purple lump from a place you'd never reach and stuff like that. Actually, while on the topic of cheating NPCs, the Lump Spring Arena match in the bonus league is pure BS. Like, up until now, the AI has been pretty tame, but here it's literally out to kill you. No matter what you do, it hits you with a free shot on the first try, and it's like it automatically knows where the next lump is about to spawn, so it's way ahead of you at all times. Normally the lump fight is one of the easiest parts of the arena, even when they up the ante by having you and 3 computers compete at once. You basically run around and collect lumps while freezing the others in the tracks with shots that recharge automatically over time, but after they've gradually added more competitors throughout the leagues, you start to notice that it's way too chaotic when 4 characters are all fighting for the same thing on these small stages. It can still be a walk in the park though, because the spawning for the collectible is maybe a bit too random. A lot of times I had like 3 of them in a row spawn right next to me. With that in mind, you'd think that Capture the Fly was a better mode, right? On the account of difficulty, not really. Like you saw earlier, all you need to do is run around an object until you win, even in the bonus league. And again, 4 players here is way too chaotic. You get a brief period of invincibility when you first capture or steal the fly, but if you're in an open and linear area, you're pretty much doomed to lose it again, since the AI just throws everything they have at you the second they're able to. The only mode where 4 players are fun is the lump fight mode. Here you collect weapons to shoot your enemies with. Everyone has 5 HP out of the gate, and whoever depletes the last hit point from someone gets 1 point. Well, unless you kill yourself, in which case you get a penalty minus point. Just like all the other modes, this too suffers from being way too easy. But there's also the problem that you have no idea what the different items do until you try them out. However, fret not, because Ubisoft had the foresight to include a poster which you can tape to your TV to not only keep track of the buttons while playing the game, but also to artificially heighten the difficulty. The poster can be combined with all manners of game modes, and the difficulty enhancer is even backwards and forwards compatible. No, but for real though, this is actually a pretty cool poster. It explains all the items in perfect detail, well, as long as you close one eye and hold the hand in front of the other. Finally, I now know that the item that has eluded me for so long, the ultimate barrier, is my protector, and not something else. The manual also has some neat tips and tricks. And really bad English. I also found this thing while rummaging around in the game case. Seems like it's some kind of questionnaire. You can even win one of these sweet cameras if you send it in. I really doubt anything will happen if I mail this, but hey, you won't win a camera if you never try, right? So I bought it for the PlayStation 2, and I'm pretty sure only a virgin would sell something like this, and the only thing that will get me to buy a game is if it's a sequel to another game. Yep, that pretty much covers it, so off you go! Now all I have to do is wait for a reply. Oh, by the way, did I mention that Rayman M multiplayer has multiplayer? Who would have thought? The back of the box states pretty exorbitantly, "Experience pure madness and delve into immersive worlds. Compete for intense 4-player split-screen action." Whoa. Hang on. They snuck a little ad in here for Rayman on Pocket PCs? I know this is a sudden off-track remark, but how many platforms has Rayman 1 even been ported to at this point? Anyways, yeah, 4-player. This is one of those games that use an adapter for the PS2 that would allow you to connect up to 4 controllers called the multi-tap. I don't think a lot of games used this, at least not a lot of prominent ones, but nevertheless, I don't have one, so 2-player it is. I invited over one of my friends that was willing to help me with my little project, and after about 40 minutes of playtime, we decided that we'd pretty much seen everything the game had to offer. What's kind of funny is that some of the game's problems still persists even with 2 humans playing. Like, it can still be ridiculously hard to hit someone if they're just jumping around like an idiot, and for some reason, running around stuff in Capture the Fly still has a notable effect. Multiplayer has every mode from single player sans Popolo Poi and Lumps mode. Oh, and it doesn't seem like we can progress in races either. It's so weird how the game is named multiplayer when honestly the multiplayer mode itself seems to be just a side thing to kill some time. I don't think Rayman M is a bad game, it just feels kinda rushed. There's a bunch of glitches, like for example, this one time I was racing on the ghost ship stage and I just kinda disappeared and reappeared in the floor above. And then there's this odd problem where there's no music when you choose training for the races, and then there's no music for the victory screen after you finish a race. Like, there's just like this ominous background noise, and I don't know if I love it or not. The AI is badly programmed, and 3 of the 8 characters doesn't even have 1 extra skin. This game came out barely a year after Revolution, and honestly it feels like it too. It's not a complete waste of time though. Honestly, I had a lot of fun with the single player, and we weren't exactly bored during the 40 minutes we played the multiplayer either. Especially the race stages in the bonus league, which you get from completing every other race stage, can be fun. 2 of them are randomly generated each time, and they have a really cool, like old computerized aesthetic to them. The on and on challenge is super fun and tests your knowledge of the tracks you've conquered. Here you need to finish 1 lap in each of the stages within a certain time limit, and the time you have left over transfers over to the next stage, which I thought was a really neat idea. I kinda wish that was in other racing games too. Then the final level has you run towards the camera while a wave is chasing you. It's not really that hard though, you just need to memorize the track and play it enough times. Rayman M is definitely unique in its own rights, and I can't remember another game like this from the top of my head. So, if you're looking for a weird piece of Rayman history, well, this is it.